This video is kindly sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command, the free-to-play multiplayer open-world strategy game that's available on both iOS and Android by using my link in the description below. Hey, 42 here. We humans have long been fascinated by conspiracy theories and fringe beliefs. According to a 2019 YouGov survey, more than 10% of Americans think the moon landing was faked. Around 20% think climate change is a hoax, and almost 30% think the government is hiding aliens inside Area 51. But whilst it's easy to poke fun at people who think the Earth is flat or that Queen Elizabeth II is actually a lizard, it turns out that many of the more out there fringe beliefs are starting to be taken extremely seriously, not just by tinfoil hat-wearing maniacs, but by some of the world's most powerful people. In 2017, the New York Times published an article revealing that a US government-sponsored secret program had been studying UFOs since 2007. That in itself was surprising, but what was even more surprising was the fact that this program had obtained footage of genuine UFOs.
Look at that thing, dude. My gosh.
Not flying saucers piloted by little green men necessarily, but strange, fast-moving airborne objects the Pentagon simply had no explanation for. In a report published in June of this year, the US government admitted they couldn't rule out the possibility that these unidentified aerial phenomena, as they called them, might be of alien origin. Star Trek Fleet Command gives you the opportunity to engage in a story-driven Star Trek galaxy. In this real-time combat open world, you can battle alongside your allies to capture territory, pool resources, and dominate the universe. You can craft your perfect ship and unlock unique ship models and upgrades. You can recruit officers and discover characters like Spock, Kirk, and more. You can build bases and upgrade your space station. You can research that lets you specialize your fleet, and you can become a freelancer where you can independently travel the open world, playing by your own rules. I've been absolutely loving playing this game recently, and for me, the best part is the high-intensity space battles, and the quality of the graphics is just insane. Look at all the incredible detail on this space station. Star Trek Fleet Command is free to play on iOS and Android using my link in the description below. So what are you waiting for? Start building your dream crew of iconic characters and starships today. Both the New York Times article and the June report mark a seismic shift in the way controversial topics like UFOs are being perceived by world governments. What were once subjects of ridicule are suddenly being taken very seriously indeed. But this shift in perception didn't happen overnight, and the chain of events leading up to it was initiated almost 15 years ago on a cattle farm in Utah with a strange name and an even stranger reputation. Skinwalker Ranch is a 500-acre property in the northeast of Utah, where, over the years, some truly disturbing things have taken place. The ranch is named for a shape-shifting witch out of Navajo folklore that's said to be able to take on the form of various animals. But it wasn't the Skinwalker itself that first put this ranch on the map. It was UFOs. The sightings started way back in the 1950s, and they've continued ever since, with literally hundreds of people claiming to have seen strange lights and unidentified objects in the skies over the ranch. But the mystery of Skinwalker Ranch doesn't end with UFOs. In fact, that isn't even the half of it. Because when the Sherman family bought the property in 1994, things started to get really weird. Within their first few days living at Skinwalker Ranch, an enormous wolf attacked one of the Shermans' prized cattle. Terry Sherman, the man of the house, was an experienced cattle rancher who was used to encounters with wolves, and so he calmly pulled out his handgun and shot the animal at point-blank range. But the wolf did not, as Terry had expected, collapsed twitching to the ground in a pool of blood and wolf brains. Nor did it turn tail and flee. In fact, it didn't even seem to take notice. After being shot a further 6 times, the wolf did eventually decide to go and look for its dinner elsewhere, but Terry Sherman's barrage of bullets hardly seemed to have affected it at all. The Shermans would go on to see many other strange creatures on the property over the following months, including giant Bigfoot-like bipeds and exotic birds that didn't show up in any books. The Shermans' eldest son, who I assume hated the American Pie films with a furious passion, had an encounter with an oddly indistinct creature that seemed to be able to cloak like the Predator. Before long, the Shermans' castle started disappearing, often never to be seen again. The ones that did turn up were usually dead, with the carcasses drained of blood and random internal organs removed. The castle that weren't mutilated were pestered by strange balls of light that zipped around the property like they owned the place. If any of the family tried to scare these odd orbs away, they experienced intense psychological symptoms, confusion, blurred vision, and intense fear. There were ghostly encounters too. Poltergeist activity pervaded the ranch's many buildings, and several family members reported hearing disembodied voices. Perhaps unsurprisingly, considering the history of the area, the Shermans also claimed to have seen plenty of strange things above the ranch as well as on it. In fact, UFOs rocked up at Skinwalker on such a regular basis, the family were able to recognize 3 specific types: a small cube-shaped craft, an elongated ship about 10 meters long, and a truly enormous vessel hundreds of meters across. The Shermans endured this barrage of bizarre phenomena for close to 18 months before one final incident pushed them over the edge. One of those odd blue orbs showed up near the ranch's main building, and assuming the disembodied light was up to no good, Terry Sherman sent his 3 dogs to chase it off. The hounds followed the orb into some nearby scrub, and sure enough, it never came back. But neither did the dogs. Terry heard several frantic, pained yelps, then silence. Their bodies were never found. Apparently deciding there might be nicer places to invest in real estate, the Shermans promptly put the ranch up for sale. You might be thinking that convincing someone to buy Skinwalker Ranch would be pretty tricky, but it turns out the perfect buyer lived not too far away in neighboring Nevada. Robert Bigelow, who today has a net worth somewhere in the region of $1 billion, snapped up Skinwalker Ranch almost as soon as it went on the market. You see, whilst Bigelow had made his money first in real estate and later in aerospace, his true passion lay with UFOs and the paranormal. To that end, he'd set up the National Institute for Discovery Science the previous year, an organization founded to research all things unexplained. As far as Robert Bigelow was concerned, Skinwalker Ranch was the perfect place to start. After all, where better to prove the existence of aliens and otherworldly creatures than on a ranch where they turned up so often you could reasonably expect to be on first-name terms with Bigfoot within days. Bigelow and his associates studied Skinwalker Ranch intensely for some 8 years before eventually shutting the project down when paranormal activity at the ranch decreased. But 3 years later, a senior scientist from the Defense Intelligence Agency, a governmental organization specializing in military intelligence, reached out to Bigelow with a request. The scientist had heard some strange things about Skinwalker Ranch, and he wanted to come and see them for himself. It took a single visit to convince the man that something outside the realms of our understanding inhabited this ranch. Within hours of arriving, he saw a strange, fluctuating shape appear in midair. The object, whatever it was, flickered and undulated before him, taking on the form of a multicolored Mobius strip before blinking out of existence. This encounter at Skinwalker Ranch directly led to Pentagon approval for the $22 million Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program in 2008. Behind the somewhat opaque name, the purpose of this organization was clear: to investigate UFOs. The program was terminated 5 years later, but was eventually succeeded by the less ambiguously named Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. The very same program that recently confirmed the US government is in the process of studying genuine UFOs. Now, I have to admit, all of this is pretty compelling. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of strange sightings at Skinwalker Ranch over the space of 7 decades or so. Sightings that were convincing enough to get the US government to invest millions of dollars into UFO research. There is one tiny issue though. The elephant that isn't in the room, if you will. Skinwalker Ranch is undoubtedly one of the most intensely studied UFO, cryptid, and paranormal sites on planet Earth. And yet, not one single piece of hard evidence exists that proves any of the phenomena people claim to have witnessed there. No UFOs have been filmed streaking across the sky overhead. No giant wolves of unknown species have been captured. No strange balls of light have been photographed screwing around with cattle or evaporating loyal dogs. Nothing. In more than 70 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. If the government really has found proof of the paranormal at Skinwalker Ranch, they're hardly going to tell us plebs about it. And that may well be true, but it isn't just the US government that's gone to Skinwalker Ranch looking for ghosts. There have been literally hundreds, possibly thousands of sightings there over the years by perfectly ordinary people. And not once has anyone captured anything on camera. The History Channel recently shot an entire TV series there, meaning a large group of people spent several months on the site, armed with high-tech cameras rolling day and night, and they recorded precisely nothing. Admittedly, they did try really hard to make that nothing look a bit like something, but ultimately, beneath the bad acting and the truly terrible scientific experiments, they didn't find or film anything inexplicable at all. Some people believe whatever it is that lurks on the ranch is far too smart to be caught on film by us idiot humans, and hey, maybe that's the case. It sounds kind of reasonable in principle, but how would that actually work in practice? Do all the flashing lights, UFOs, and strange creatures that have been spotted around Skinwalker Ranch come pre-installed with some kind of hypersensitive human holding a camera radar that warns them whenever someone reaches into his pocket for an iPhone? Is it really realistic to believe that the unknown intelligence behind these phenomena is happy to be seen by humans, but not be filmed? If so, why? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's definitely nothing going on at Skinwalker Ranch. There are plenty of gaps in our understanding of the universe, and until we 100% that really hard video game called science, it's impossible to rule anything out for sure. But might there be something else going on at Skinwalker Ranch that explains all this weirdness without the need for ghosts and goblins? Well, maybe. Skinwalker Ranch's reputation is built on eyewitness reports made by people who've seen things in the area they can't explain. On the plus side, there are lots of these reports, but on the downside, we humans are, as a rule, terrible eyewitnesses. Like, really terrible. Unreliable eyewitnesses are thought to be behind a, frankly, scary 3/4 of all false convictions in murder and rape cases in the UK. And an equally frightening 70% of all wrongful convictions overturned by DNA evidence in the US. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll also know that humans are prone to forming false memories about things that never happened. Misleading memories that are indistinguishable from genuine ones. So, whilst hundreds of eyewitness accounts certainly can't be written off, they also don't actually prove anything. And don't forget, most people go to Skinwalker Ranch because they've heard the stories and want to see the monsters and UFOs for themselves. Which in itself probably goes a fair way to explaining why there have been so many sightings. Motivated perception. Where our motivations impact how we see the world is a well-studied phenomenon. Broadly speaking, motivated perception means that people see what they want to see. Anyone going to Skinwalker Ranch, hoping, even expecting to see UFOs or bulletproof wolves, is much more likely to do exactly that than a random tourist strolling through the area with no preconceived ideas about what he might find there. But what about the Sherman family? They seem to have had run-ins with UFOs and creepy cryptids on an almost daily basis. Surely all of that can't be down to some kind of mass trick of motivational perception. No, probably not. But then again, it probably isn't entirely reasonable to conclude that aliens, unkillable werewolves, intelligent balls of light, poltergeists, and Bigfoot all definitely exist because one family says they do. If I was to tell you I ride to work every morning on a flying horse called Bigelow, you'd probably have your reservations. Or maybe not. And if the Sherman family really did see strange things as often as they claimed to, you'd think they might have managed to catch something on camera. Of course, it's perfectly possible, very likely even, that plenty of people who've experienced strange things on Skinwalker Ranch are completely reliable witnesses who were not all mistaken in what they saw or felt. But seeing or feeling something you can't explain doesn't automatically mean aliens or interdimensional beings are responsible for it. Plenty of apparent Bigfoot sightings over the years are thought to have been caused by black bears walking on their hind legs. And many supposed UFO encounters have turned out to be the cases of mistaken identity with things like weather balloons, satellite arrays, meteorites, or military tests involving experimental weapons and aircraft. That last one is particularly interesting, by the way, because the deserts of Utah have long been a favourite location for classified US military tests. Skinwalker Ranch is just 150 miles from Dugway Proving Ground, a military test site that many ufologists consider to be some kind of successor to Area 51. So, what's really going on at Skinwalker Ranch? The truth is, there's no way to know for sure. But Carl Sagan once said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I'm inclined to agree. If you were to tell me you saw a monkey in full Hell's Angels regalia fleeing from the police on the back of a flaming Harley Davidson, you'd better have some seriously compelling footage to back it up. As of today, there is no such compelling footage, or any other concrete evidence for that matter, supporting the idea that Skinwalker Ranch is some kind of convention centre for possibly made up things that scared the crap out of humans. It's certainly interesting that the US government briefly took an interest in the site, but then again, rumour has it the CIA once hired Uri Geller to erase KGB floppy disks using the power of his spoon-bending mind. So yeah, that's no guarantee of anything either. Whilst there's no denying Skinwalker Ranch is a strange and intriguing place, for now, if you want to believe it's regularly frequented by aliens, giant wolves, Bigfoot, poltergeists, and dog-devouring balls of light, you're going to have to take a leap of faith. Incidentally, Robert Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch in 2016 to a shady shell corporation known as Adamantium Holdings. The price? $4.5 million. Turns out you can make a fair bit of cash if you manage to convince someone you own the alien equivalent of Mecca. Thanks for watching. Good news, you can now pre-order my new book, Bread and Circuses. What did the Romans ever do for us? It's a wild and witty journey for 1,000 years of unexpected Roman history, told in a refreshing way and packed full of incredible and unbelievable stories. Copies are selling out fast, so pre-order yours today to lock it in. Thank you.